Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our expert panel in Careers in Human Resources for International Students. Tonight, we are joined by recent graduates and international students from institutions all across Canada and internationally. I am really happy to be here. My name is Zora Lakhani, and I'll be moderating our session this evening. So before we get started, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping items with all of you so that hopefully everything goes smoothly today. So one, we ask that all of you please do use the Q&A section to ask questions, as the chat function won't be monitored for questions, but will be more of a space for you to kind of connect with each other and share your LinkedIn profile links perhaps. We use the chat function so that we can share resources, but no worries. We also don't have any need for muting, and you've all been muted already, and you don't need to use your video, and you should be able to hear us via your computer or device audio. And this session will be recorded, and it will be shared with all the registrants. And we invite you to our future sessions, which are listed under the events tab on our website, www.devant.ca/all-events. And you'll receive a copy of our Devant newsletter, your Devant Insider, in your email. So welcome, everyone. Great, so let's get started. As I mentioned, I'm Zora, and I'm really excited to be moderating our session this evening. Before I introduce our expert panelists, let me tell you a little bit about myself and Devant. I work with Devant to assist international students and newcomers to stay, work, and succeed in Canada. And before joining Devant, I actually worked a lot internationally in India, Kenya, Pakistan, and Tajikistan. And so for several years, I worked with preparing students to go abroad and study. And so I understand this journey that you're on, and also how brave many of you are for coming to a new place, and can understand some of the concerns and aspirations that you all might have. So we're really in this together, and I hope that we come out stronger with a stronger network of folks to connect with. So let me tell you a little bit about Devant. So Devant is a French word, and it quite literally means to be in front of. And we believe that our services at Devant actually will help you in coming in front of the rest in your journey to stay, work, and succeed in Canada. And we are organized and tailored specifically to cater to international students with expertise of over 60 years of combined experience working in higher education and career development. Folks at Devant saw the challenges and opportunities that international students and recent graduates have when they are looking to establish successful careers in Canada. And so we help students and graduates to get hired in Canada. We've supported over 25,000 job seekers from across Canada to find work. We've hosted 500 plus live expert career development events since 2019. And we have over 30 Canadian employers with active job opportunities that we hope that you will stay connected with us on and take advantage of. So I will do a quick round of intros of our expert panelists. Of course, I'm Zora, I'm your moderator. We have Rumina Ratansi. Hi, Rumina, who is one of our panelists. We also have Ali Najaf. Hi, Ali. And we have Saida Kabir. Hi, Saida. And we will get started. I will do my first intro with Rumina. So Rumina, hi, Rumina. So great to have you back with us.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
So Rumina is an executive HR consultant with over 20 years of HR experience in business transformation, in change strategy, and as a leadership coach and DEI advisor. She's also worked a lot in career transition and management, and is currently the head of a successful HR consulting boutique, Leadership Empire, which hopefully we'll hear a lot more about. Rumina has worked in the public, private, and nonprofit sector and has held many board positions. Fun fact, Ramina is also a TEDx speaker coach, so would love to also hear your tips and tricks on that, Ramina. I'll go on to introduce our other panelists, Ali and Saida, and then I'll go into our questions period. So hi, Ali, welcome. Great to have you back with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Very excited to speak with everyone today.
Wonderful, Ali. And it's so fun because I've actually been doing expert panels since 2020, and I have been very lucky to actually work with all of you in some regard. So it's really nice to have everyone back. So Ali has HR experience with organizations like ICBC, Cute, and Greenlane. Am I pronouncing all of those correctly? Or please correct my pronunciation.
I would say the last one is Greenlane.
Greenlane, my mistake. I have made a typo there, my mistake. So Greenlane. And Ellie has 7 years of diverse experience in both the public and private sectors. He's a dedicated volunteer, contributing over 3,000 hours to more than 35 organizations in Canada and Pakistan. Wow, like, I think that's a really fun fact to dive into in our conversation as well, because it might help folks to kind of see how they can enter their field, perhaps also through volunteer experience. So it's really great to hear about those hours. And Ellie is also recognized as one of the young influencers by Canadian HR Reporter magazine. Fantastic, and frequently contributes to the CPHR's People Talk magazine, focusing on topics such as diversity and inclusion and fostering a more gender diverse workforce. Fantastic. That is great news. And I'm looking forward to hearing how folks can also build their personal brand and support and contribute to the space in this regard as well. Ali, welcome. And last but definitely not least, especially in my heart, Saida Kabir. Saida is an HR leader working in various industries for the last 11 years. Currently, she's working as an HR manager and HR business partner at IPG Media Brands. It's a Fortune 500 company in media and advertising. She completed her master's in international relations and human resources from the University of Toronto. Saida, welcome back.
Thanks, Zara.
Fantastic. It's so amazing to see all of you. And I'll go through the questions that we have. And these questions have come in from folks on the chat. I just want to let you know that these questions have come in through participants in the past and folks who have emailed us around questions for HR. So really excited to be going through these questions with all of you. And again, just as a reminder, if you have any questions for our panelists, please do put that in the Q&A, use the Q&A function to share your questions, and they can be directed at any panelist or all. And I also invite all of you to put into the chat a little intro about yourself. I had an opportunity to introduce Devant, myself, our panelists, so it'd be fantastic to hear from all of you and share a little blurb about yourself in the chat so that everyone can get to know each other. And also feel free to share your LinkedIn profile. So as a network of HR professionals or aspiring HR professionals, you have the opportunity to also connect with each other via Devant. So fantastic, and hope to hear from all of you in the chat. Great. So our first question that we'll tackle today is, what academic qualifications and skills are essential to break into the HR field? And what do recruiters look for in an HR candidate? So that's our first question. And we'll have Ramina lead on that question with Ali and Saida as support. And so there's some text here, and feel free to take screenshots or use your phone to take photos, or know that we'll be having this recording sent to you also in your email. So feel free. I know we have some here. You see the T-shaped HR professionals image, so you're welcome to take a quick snap of that. And our second question that we'll tackle, and I'm splitting this question into two. So one question is really, what is the current and future of work within this sector? Particularly, I mean, before we got started, I heard Ali and Romina actually starting to have this conversation about how the HR sector perhaps like had a shift, with COVID specifically, but also how we're continuing to work in this space. So really understanding what is the current and future of work within this sector. And Ali will lead on that. If I've not, yes, is that correct? Great. And then the third question will be, what are the key trends and emerging areas in HR that students should be aware of and prepare for? And so we'll have some ideas jumping around on that front as well. Our fourth question will be, perhaps understanding the day-to-day responsibilities and challenges of an HR professional. So kind of getting an understanding for the participants, like what that looks like, and maybe even understanding a range, because Ali, Seda, and Romina work in different spaces. And so does that look different in those spaces? And perhaps you can also tailor your resume or applications towards demonstrating that type of skill set and understanding and competency. The next question we'll have a conversation around is, what advice do you have for students looking to gain practical experience in HR while they're still in school? And so oftentimes, we graduate and one of the things we're looking for, of course, is a job, but oftentimes we need a little bit of experience to get that first step through the door. And perhaps how can we start getting those practical experiences while still in school? And the last question we will discuss is, how can students network and connect with HR professionals and organizations to kickstart their career in HR? And so I know a lot of you will have a lot to say about that, and perhaps some anecdotes to share as well. So I'll put all these questions into the chat so that all of you, can also see the questions that we are referring to, and I'll just stop sharing the screen so that you can see the beautiful faces of all our panelists. So give me just a minute while I do that. Great. And so I think all of you can see everyone. Yes, fantastic. Okay, so if possible, we can get started on the first question. So I'm just putting that into the chat, and folks, I see that there's already some chat happening. Hi, Emmanuel. Hi, Marianne. Welcome. Really excited to have all of you. So I put into the chat the 6 questions that we'll be going through so that you also have reference to it, and so do our panelists. And I will start off with this first question: what academic qualifications and skills are essential to break into the HR field, and what recruiters are looking for in an HR candidate? So Romina, please start us off.
Totally happy to start you off. Welcome everyone, and thanks Zora for the introduction as well. So to me, this is a bit of a loaded question because there's so many different ways that you can slice and dice this type of question. But I think historically, one of the things that I've always learned and that I've always been told is, when you're looking at various qualifications, sometimes the more diverse your qualifications are, you probably have a better or well-rounded lens of experience. And so, for HR practitioners, there's obviously, the academic route where you get, your high school diploma, and then you can follow through, either you go to college or university, then you can follow it through with a master's, and then various different certifications. And so that's where I'm saying diversify some of your experiences, right? When you think about certifications, obviously, looking at your CHRL or CHRE, depending on, where you are within the province or even around the globe and what's relevant to them. But also looking at payroll certifications, looking at things like change management certifications or project management type certifications. And funny enough, one of the certifications I did myself was a Scrum Master one. And the reason why I did that is because I was actually leading a lot of HRIS transitions, so transformations from one system to another. And so I found that working with my IT team, began to be a little bit challenging, and they kept, going into these circles and having these huddles, and I was a little bit confused at the time. So when I was asking a few questions, they were all saying, well, we're doing the Scrum method and we're in this agile, method environment and blah, blah, blah. And I went, oh my God, okay, well, how do I get this certification so I understand what you guys are doing? And believe me, it's really fared well for me. And it allowed me to gain, I think, a little bit of respect by the teams that I was working with as well. So it added a layer of integrity and credibility as well. So for me, the more different types of certifications that you can get that complement your career and complement, the type of vertical that you want to go into in HR, I think the better it is for you. And I think the other part of the question is really around some of the skills that maybe even recruiters might be looking for, or different organizations like leadership teams might be looking for. So I think as an HR professional, one of the things that you have to remember is we need to be able to communicate really well. We have to communicate clearly, effectively, and not just verbally, but also writing. We have to be compelling in the way that we speak. So it's really important to do that. And another area is we also have to have empathy. So we need to be able to show those skills, especially the interpersonal skills as well. So empathy and interpersonal skills kind of link hand in hand. I know when I was a VP, part of my team, what I required from them was the problem solving skills. So for me, if you're going to come in with a problem, I want you to also come in with 1 or 2 or 3 options to consider so that we can have a fruitful dialogue. So I think having those problem solving skills, which then lead to that critical thinking, because then I can assess people and say, okay, is this person really thinking in the right space? Or do I have to coach them and guide them a little bit better too? I think also as HR people, we need to be able to be ethical, right? We need to understand what our own value systems are, what our own principle-based notions are, and we've got to align them to the culture of the organization. So making sure that you've got an ethical brand about you, and that you're extremely professional and use discretion when you have to use discretion as well. I also feel that for HR people, and HR folks, it's important to have a good level of legal knowledge as well. So making sure that you've got a good understanding of ESA or health and safety, WSIB, all of those things are really important. So again, having that sense of legal knowledge, and whether it's provincial law, federal law, depending on where you work, those things are really important too. And the other thing that I want to say too, again, very, very important. And I think Ali and I also started to get into a bit of this conversation, but for me, it's about analytics. Everybody wants to know about analytics. How do you build credibility in your own repertoire of skills that you have? So analytics can help you tell a story. It can help you, have dialogue, and of course, create some buy-in as well when you're trying to influence people to kind of see things your way. And again, lastly, being able to negotiate, but also having that teamwork attitude and collaboration with a very strong business acumen. All of those areas really fall into place, especially when you're looking for a job in an organization. So I know I've told you a lot, but just kind of keep those things in mind. And I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. And I tried my best to give snapshots of what you were talking about, Romina, in the chat. So you can see some of those reminder keywords, participants who are taking a look at the chat. These are some of the things that Romina also mentioned in conversation. So please feel free, Romina, to add to that. But Saida, Ali, would you like to add on? Yes, Saida, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Rumina perfectly actually covered a lot of the things that I wanted to share in my question. But one of the things on analytics is, for sure, this is like one of the most important things for the C-suite, for the leadership team right now. A lot of this is tied into their goals. I know that is in the space I work in, the leadership team that I work in. They're so much into the data that they get from HR team, and then this helps them to actually make a lot of business decision. A lot of the surveys we do with our employee base, we analyze the data, we provide recommendation to the C-suite, we create action planning. What are the things they should be doing? What are the things they should be planning for next year? So analytics is for sure something they should be focusing on in terms of like skills development and areas to focus on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sayeda. I'll move on to question number 2. And so within the context of the current and future of work, what does the sector look like? What can we expect? Ali, go ahead.
I would say in terms of HR is a very new career. Like back in the time, there used to be something called personal assistants or personal department, like where people are mostly doing file work, like hiring people, like just doing training and stuff. But HR has evolved over the last 20 years, and the shift has been gone from like more admin work to more like strategic work. Let's say like Starbucks, right? Like when we go to Starbucks as a customer, we want a good customer service. So HR is a good customer service provider for internal employees, because all the leaders and all the departments rely on us to provide them services in terms of like recruitment, performance management, talent development. So as like Rumina mentioned, like if we have like greater skills, like if you're understanding the needs of business in terms of like analytics, like how many people we need to hire, like if you're doing more accurate forecast and providing them like proper recruitment of employees, that we were adding more value. So the shift has been a lot on like strategic position of HR in that on the table now. And one thing that I really are focusing right now, and even like suggesting everyone to learn, is like financial numbers as well. Like as HR, we also need to know how the business is making money and how we can like provide support to affect that triple bottom line. Because once we move to those roles such as like HR business partner, right? Like you are getting the seat on the tables. We need to know the full cycle of like how business work, and like how we can like make sure that we're not just doing like admin work, but we're also giving strategic decision making and suggestions on how we can improve the business. So that's that way the sector has changed a lot.
Yeah, that's a really key point that you're bringing up around knowledge of finances as well. I mean, especially from a first point of contact, oftentimes both for external folks and internal folks, the HR internal employees, the HR team is really that first point of contact, is really the front face. Like you were talking about Starbucks, which was such a great example, that's really relatable, is that having knowledge of like the full picture, including finances, including the data analytics that will inform strategic decision making, has become more and more part of the HR sector, and is going in that direction. So I really appreciate how you drew that out for us, Ellie, talking about what that looked like, in the past, and really being able to, I think any of us, either who are current HR professionals or have dealt with HR professionals, I think many of us have, and can attest to this dynamic shift from administrative support to very clearly a strategic framework and front-facing service provider.
Thank you. You did a good summary.
Thanks, Ellie. Rumina, Sayeda, did you want to add anything to the future of work or what this is looking like?
No, I think Ali covered it pretty well, sharing the historical sort of picture and then how it looks like. I'm so glad that like over the years we people in HR were able to get that seat on that strategic table, because that was very, very important, that bringing that shift, making them realize, making the C-suite realize that we are important, we should be there, we are here to help you answer those questions. We have those data for you to make it easy to make those decisions. So I'm glad that we are moving that way, and that now they see us as valuable business partners. They see us that we add value, and we are there as your partner to provide value. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Saida. And kind
I'll
of
just add something really quickly,
go ahead,
actually.
Ramina.
I think both Ali and Saida said it really, really well, and I just want to echo, that while HR has really evolved from 20 years ago or whatever, it will continue to do so. And so ensuring that we don't become complacent. And one of the things that HR people sometimes do is fall into old habits. And those old habits might be, just kind of sitting behind a computer and answering questions, or that working from home and things like that. I think it's really important that we continue to reinvent who we are as a profession, but also as an individual, so that we can stay relevant and stay credible, and be part of the moving workforce rather than become stagnated.
So important, Ramina. Thanks for adding that layer, because oftentimes it's this, as an educator, I'm always advocating for lifelong learning and forward movement. And so I think this is a really interesting aspect to ensure that complacency is not that comfort zone that we stick to, but really innovating in the space that we're in. So thank you, Ramina, for adding that. I'll go on to the third question. And of course, I invite folks to put into the chat any questions that they might have, so that after these questions, we can also go into the Q&A that's coming from the participants. But our next question is focused on these key trends and emerging areas in HR that students should be aware of and prepare for. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So when I think of HR and like the new trends and emerging topics, so many things come to mind, Zora. I'll be honest. There are so many things that's going on that are very much we are talking about in different conferences, different sessions, and lots of training going on. The number one thing that comes to mind would be employee experience and well-being. So well-being, especially post-COVID, well-being has been one of the most important topic that we realized as employers. Of course, I'm an employee, but just being in HR, just from our perspective of an employer, that the burnout issues, the mental health issues are real. And previously, we didn't focus much on it, and now we are focusing. And then a lot of our leadership team are realizing that these are real, these are important. So they are bucketing more resources, more wellness resources, more mental health resources. We in our company, we have mental health first aiders, where there are people who are trained mental health first aiders, where if there is any issue, employees will go to them and they'll provide support. Of course, there is employee assistant program and EFAP and things like that. But employee well-being is number one that comes to mind. Of course, as Romina mentioned, HR analytics is very important in strategic decision, in making sure that we are addressing one of the important challenges in HR in the business that is related to people management. And then we are doing all these surveys. Employee Net Promoter Score, ENPS, is very much important these days. We in all the industries that I've worked in all the companies that I've worked in, ENPS is something that they measure, and it's tied to the goal for the C-suite. So a lot of time it's the CEO's goal to ensure that you have a very strong ENPS score. And quickly just say, I'll tell you what it means. Employee Net Promoter Score is actually a question where they ask the employees that if they would recommend the company as a good place to work. And then they take they only take the score for 9, and so it's the score from 1 to 10, and then they only take the score from 9 and 10, and I think they subtract 1 to 6. So they even don't take 7 or 8. The passive ones are not taken. Only the main focus is on the people who are rating 9 or 10. So that we understand what the scores are, who are the people. Mostly they are anonymous. What's the chunk of the people who are actually recommending this is a good place to work? So HR analytics is very, very important. Another important thing I would say would be employee retention. So retention of critical talents, because especially in service industry, especially in industries where all the industry people are so important. So we want to understand that who are those critical talents through talent reviews, through performance management, identifying those superstars, those critical talent, and then making sure we have proper retention strategies to ensure that we keep them motivated, we keep them happy. So that's another thing. One last thing I will mention is that, of course, it's very much in from last few years, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and making sure we have that diverse workforce, especially in Canada, where like all the companies are so diverse. Toronto is such a diverse city, ensuring that we are bringing in that diverse talent into the companies.
Thanks, Saida. I had a couple of things to add here, but Rumina and Ali, anything you'd like to say?
Sure. I think Seda did a great job of summarizing some of those emerging trends. I think, part of employee well-being, which is what, Seda was talking about, is also that employee experience level, right? So really looking at, are we focusing on the right things to ensure that our employees are happy in their role? Are we giving them the right tools in order to set them up for success? Are we setting up their onboarding processes to make sure their onboarding is actually, good for them to acquire the skill sets and get the coaching right at the onset so that we don't have to have those difficult conversations 6, 9 months or a year later. So it's really important that we look at some of those positive aspects of things to really get that employee engagement, energy, and experience right up front. I think the other thing too, and I often feel that HR people shy away from this, but it's understanding that we work in a gig economy as well, right? So knowing that it's okay to have contract work or project-based work, because oftentimes, and I hear this all the time with students and, with even people who are in mid-level career saying, I'm really having a hard time finding a full-time job that I enjoy, or I really don't like the environment that I'm working in. And so, sometimes looking at contract work where it allows you to have exposure in different cultures, have different leadership styles that you can work towards, have different team members that you can work with as well, and understand different policy regimes and, different environments. Like that to me sometimes is very powerful because it gives you, again, a more resilient approach to moving towards the future of work and what that would look like. And that whole element of change and evolution will make you even more resilient. So those are some of the things. Oh, and sustainability. Sustainability, I think, is another area that, really is important. Organizations are looking at what their corporate, social responsibility might be and what should they be concerned about and things like that. So, we've got to look at those aspects as HR professionals as well.
That's fantastic, Romina. Thanks for complementing these 4 points that Seda spoke to. I'll speak to a couple of things. So the resilient piece really spoke to me, Romina, because as we speak to international students and newcomers, I think one of the things that you all, international students and newcomers, have that others don't is resilience, because it is a competency, a skill, like a attribute that you bring to and contribute to, your team and the employer and the organization because of your experiences. And I think that something that I want to speak to about what Saida was mentioning the diversity, equity, inclusion, especially in, Toronto or Ontario or parts of Canada, because we have a really huge, diverse population. And folks who are newcomers sometimes find it difficult to find work because one of the things that folks say is, well, you don't have enough Canadian experience. And so how do we kind of offset, how would candidates offset this perhaps concern around Canadian experience, but also demonstrate that their diversity in experiences and where they come from actually makes them really resilient, more innovative, and be able to contribute at a really unique and upgraded level, I would say. I'm throwing this question out as a bonus.
I would say that, like, one thing that a lot of people talk about is Canadian experience, right? But I think there is no such thing as Canadian experience. Experience is experience, right? It's not like where you got it, right? Those number of years that you have worked is the number of experience you have, and it's how you have developed yourself, right? And your core skills will transfer over country to country, but there might be little bit things we need to learn, right, on the way, right? So don't feel shy to say, oh, I don't have a Canadian experience and I'm not able to work and enter workforce. That's not true. I was talking to Rumina earlier and we talked about networking, right? And it's very, very important, especially right now, to know people in this country, right? Like a lot of jobs, to be very, very honest, come through network, right? If you are out of work and you're looking for a job, your network might know what the job is available and they might be able to put you as a referral for that job. I do like a lot of recruitment in my roles, and almost like 40 to 50% of the roles that we hire are the people from our internal employees who refer their friends, and like other people, like they mostly get preference in like selection, right? Because we can like trust them, like they know those people, right? So make sure you build like a good network of people. It's very important. It's not like who it's like who knows you, and that's very important. And that way, like you can add value. And the third thing is volunteering. I think that will give you a lot of opportunities to like develop those missing skills, right? Like we talked about empathy today, right? Empathy comes when you do volunteer work, right? Resilience comes when you do volunteer work, right? Like time management, like meeting with diverse group of people, right? And that will give you like some kind of experience in terms of like titles and stuff. And lastly, like there's so many organizations around Canada who are here to help you out. Go and like talk to people, right? I think today's the first step you did. Like you took the time. If you're like in Toronto, it's already like 7:40 p.m., right? Like you took your evening out to come and like listen to us, right? That is the first step, right? You're already ahead of the game. So make sure you go out, ask for help. There are always people there to help you out. And feel free to like connect with me after as well if you have any questions. Yeah.
Ali, I absolutely love that. Absolutely. To be very honest, and please, Rumina, and say that please let me know if you think otherwise. But the fact that Ali, as an HR professional, you said there is no such thing as Canadian experience, like really, really shook me. Because, and I'm not sure how people in the participants are feeling, but share it in the chat. Does that resonate with you? And say that, Rumina, do you believe that too? Like that your number of years of experience is your experience, regardless of like where, because I love that you said your core skills will remain, but there will be nuances in these various aspects, and how you demonstrate and talk about that is really where the core is.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think it is extremely important to make sure that you make all of your years of history count, all of your experience count, and how you present that on a resume is so important and so critical. Remember, your resume is your real estate page, and so you need to be able to market that and market yourself. What I will say though, because I've also been on the other receiving side where I've been working with executives who often say, well, yeah, that person's really good, but they have no Canadian experience. Or how would they really know about XYZ? And so the advice I would give to folks that are foreign trained professionals is to say, no matter what country you're going to live in, understand the layers of legislation, understand the makeup of regulation compliance, and you know, all different aspects that really make an organization tick from that perspective. So if you're working here in Ontario, make sure you understand the various legislations and the reason why I say that is because oftentimes when I say to someone, hey, can you put together a policy on AODA? Oftentimes they'll look at me and say, what's AODA? We have no idea. So if you, okay, so the Ontario's Accessibility Act, right? So those types of things, or we need a policy on XYZ. So know the legislation, know how, even if you're doing a workplace investigation and you need to deal with WSIB, know how to do that investigation. So know the parameters, how that investigation is, or when you sit on a health and safety committee, right? Make sure you know, what does a health and safety committee require? What types of audits do we have to have? So again, your experience internationally is fantastic, but then really immersing yourself in some of the key elements within the country that you work in is also going to help you and advance you as you go to apply for those roles.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you for sharing that, Romina. I absolutely echo the same thoughts that both of Ali and Romina shared. Depending on the roles, a lot of time, because HR is like, there are so many buckets in HR. There is talent acquisition, there is L&D, there is DEI, who specialize in DEI, and there is HRBP. So depending on the role, focusing on some of the things that we just discussed would be my recommendation, and understanding like what is your passion. I think I just saw a question related to health and safety. Someone was asking related to that. So like, if you want to build your career towards that, so understand the legislation and that specific provinces like rules and regulation, ESA and things like that, WSIB, things like that would be very much beneficial when you get that interview call, because they're going to ask you those questions, and you have to answer them. You have to be prepared. So it's better to make sure you are prepared ahead of the time.
Okay, I love this. For me, my main message here was do your research. Do your research really in depth, because even in a resume and through a job description, like usually I have a job description and I have my resume side by side with my cover letter. And I'm going to make sure that whatever is indicated in my resume. So for example, knowledge of AOP and asset. I'm like, what's AOP? Or sorry, AOPA, whatever the letters were you said, Romina, I'm embarrassing myself.
AODA, yeah.
AODA, right? And so
Yes.
it is my responsibility now to do research on AODA, because obviously I would have like had it read through the job description. Hopefully I had enough time to apply for this job, read through the job description, build my real estate on my resume, and look up what an AODA is. Okay, and do some research. In my resume, then I can indicate, knowledge of AODA, or, recognizing that you are doing your research, demonstrating maybe you don't have experience in creating AODA policy related work, but that you have a knowledge of what it is, what its purpose is, why does it play a role in some of these organizations. And so doing your research, I think, is like the key messaging that is coming out for me in this. I'm going to move on to the next question, because I know we're having a really good time. But I think some of this, say that what you just mentioned is going into a little bit of this question on, can you describe the day-to-day responsibilities and challenges of an HR professional, particularly because you can be doing all kinds of things. You can be doing recruitment, you can be doing policy, like tell us, what does the day-to-day look like?
Absolutely. I can tell you from my perspective. So I work as an HR business partner and HR manager. So my day-to-day would be a little different from how my team member who is a senior manager in talent acquisition, like we do completely different things. So I can tell you what I do, like as an HR VP, more generalist sort of role. Basically, I focus on some of the things that would include working with leaders and people managers in terms of making sure that they're working with their team members on performance management, having those difficult conversations if there's any support needed for any team member who's in like a below rating in performance. So guiding them with that conversation. I do work with talent reviews. So we do talent calibration on an annual basis, working with them to identify the critical talents. We do annual merit cycles. So that is part of maybe compensation benefit, but that's part of my role as well. We do annual merit cycle, we do monthly like promotions, working with those data, working with the benchmarking, analyzing the data, what is there out there in the market, and then creating the bands within the company and providing recommendations to the business. For example, XYZ need to be promoted. What should be a good promotion amount? What should be the title? Things like that. That is part of my role. I work in short-term disability, long-term disability, making sure we support that. We do have different policies. So according to the policies, support that as well. Other than that, like any ER issue, like lots of things happen within the space of HR. So we provide that support. We do the investigation. We talk to the witnesses. We talk to the involved parties, and then we make sure that we provide a recommendation if anything needs to be done, warning letters, disciplinary matters, things like that. Other than that, like there's like day to day, so many things come up. There's never a dull day, and I'm sure Rumina and Ali would agree with me. I was telling my husband the other day, like every day there's new sort of difficulties, new sort of new items that come up that I never dealt in the last 2 years. Absolutely new item. And then you have to come up, and the recommendation can be subjective a lot of times, right? Because it's not mathematics, right? It's not 1 + 1 = 2. A lot of time based on your life experience, based on your experience, expertise, sometimes recommendation can be different, especially ER matters. So dealing with those. And then I'm also part of the DI committee. So we have neighborhood blocks, which are ERG groups within our company. So I'm the lead of Pan-Asian Network. So all the employees within the Asian countries, so we represent that. And then we do different activities, different activation. Now we are doing like a Safe Space Connect because of the Israel-Palestinian war. We want to make sure we support. If there is anyone who wants to talk about it, they need support on that topic. So there are very delicate matters, very like safe conversation that we deal with on a regular basis with our employee base.
I absolutely love that. And I think that comes like folks who are listening, I hope you're seeing all these connections, like empathy, sensitivity, problem solving, like all these things are. And so when you think about these questions coming up in interviews, it's because these scenarios happen and you don't get, like you're saying, in 2 years, you're constantly dealing with new challenges. You're not constantly being told or getting trained on how to deal with those new challenges day to day to day to day.
Right.
It's
right.
that you have the capacity and competency to consult the right people and respond
Right.
accordingly. And so
exactly.
And so when candidates are considering applying to certain positions, keep that in mind. This is what an employer might be looking to. I want to move on to the next question, but Ali and Rumina, do you have anything that you critically want to add? Okay, fantastic. So I'll ask this, what advice do you, and I know y'all have given up so much advice, we ask for more. What advice do you have for students looking to gain practical experience in HR while they're still in school? And Ali, like for me, like the number one thing that might come from you is volunteering. But any other aspects that come up from any of you? Ali, go ahead.
I would say my final advice would be like, I was immigrant myself, like I came here in Canada in 2012 as an international student completed my bachelor's, have been workforce for 5 years, changed, worked with like 3 different employers in the past 5 years as well. I would say never feel shy to ask for help and oversell yourself. Oversell yourself, right? Like don't feel shy that you don't have anything to like showcase. Like if you don't know any skill, just work on it, right? And always if you're at work, like raise your hand up if there's some new project that comes up, right? Like as Saida mentioned, right? She's heading the ERG group, right? Like those are the skills, those are extra things you can do to like contribute more value. So that would be my advice.
I love that. Rumina, say that.
No, I think that's perfectly addressed. Thank you, Ali. Same recommendation, just going out there, keeping all the advices in mind, network, connect with the people. We always say, we used to say, I remember Zora, that like 80% of the jobs are in the hidden job market and it's not out there. So you have to make sure you connect with the right people. Because I was also an international student, I came here to do my master's at UFT, and I still remember and I shared that story with you, Zora, that like, on one of our courses, our professor came in and he said, like, he looked at the resume, he said, I don't know you, I'm never gonna hire you. And that stuck to me for so long. I made sure that I scheduled like multiple networking session during my master's course, and then meet people all over around, all in GTA. And then that's how I landed my first job, through networking. And I'm so blessed and grateful that it happened, and then there was no looking back. So networking is the key for sure. Use LinkedIn, make sure you reach out to the right people, make sure you reach out to the HR people in the companies that you want to target, and then build that connection. Like, don't hesitate, don't be shy to ask the right question. And you never know, people are so nice and supportive. You never know, you just need one person to, like, you just need one job, right? So it's all about the number games.
Thanks, Saida. And I never forget that story. Never.
Yeah.
Rumina.
Yeah.
So thanks, and I think we're almost at the last question, so I might just combine a couple of things together. And I wholeheartedly agree with both what Ali and Saida have said. I think they've said it so eloquently, and I really appreciate their thoughts on this. I think one of the other things that we need to remember when it comes to networking is it also fares well for you later on in life. And I'm a prime example of that. And Ali and I were talking earlier where he had asked me that question. And I said to him, if I could go back and tell my younger self to do something different, it would be to network more and, to really make more connections. And I think people really don't always understand what networking means. Networking is not about job search. Networking is not about looking for a job and asking for a job. Networking is about building relationships. It's about having a curious mind. It's about sharing information, sharing insights, trends, best practices, and really collaborating on hot topics and having that engaging discussion. Through that, you will probably find work through that hidden job market that we talked about earlier. Because oftentimes when you're networking, people hear things about what's going on in their organizations before they're even posted. So someone might give you a lead and say, hey, I know we were talking about, this and this the other day, and it sounded like you had a lot of information on it. You might want to apply for this job. If you give me your resume, I'm happy to, put it into HR for you. So, again, you have to remember the purpose of networking, and it has to be so intentional. I get tons of emails or even messages on LinkedIn to say, hey, can I talk to you about, my next job? I'm looking for, a job in XYZ. And I always say to them, half the time I actually ignore those because they're not networking with me for a purpose. They're networking to find a job, and I know nothing about you. So I can't help you find a job, especially when you just give me a blanket statement saying, I'm looking for a job. I don't care. Good luck. So it's all good. You have to really be thoughtful and intentional. So I can't stress that enough. I think the other way that you can go about networking too, especially when you're a student, is probably looking at, where you're in your college or university, any of those student organizations. Look at the peers that you're going to be collaborating with, that you have exams with, that are in your class. They're all going to go off and do different things. Keep connected with them regularly. You don't know who's going to give a lead to someone else later on. And if you've got good relations with them, even better for you. So keep connected to people and student organizations within your college, university, or even like if you go to a church group, or, if you're affiliated with a club or, a gym or something like that, network with people in all of those places. Another area that I would say networking would really fare well are career fairs. Oftentimes, we just think career fairs are all about just applying for jobs and seeing what's out there. Why don't you use it to your advantage? Attend those career fairs, whether they're online or whether they're in person, but have a copy of your resume ready, of course. Go out and interview other people and ask them why they work for the companies that they work, and learn about those organizations, learn about the different jobs that are there and that are available and that might be a possible interest for you. So be inquisitive, ask about it, be curious, and really just connect with people. And even it doesn't have to be the employer side of career fairs. Talk to the other people that are actually looking for jobs and say, well, what kind of job are you looking for? What background do you have? And make some friendships, spark some connections in those conversations as well. So don't be shy about attending some of those. And you really have to put yourself out there. And so I mean it when I say don't be shy, put yourself out there. And then, LinkedIn, I think Seda mentioned LinkedIn as well. So LinkedIn is a great source. I have networked with so many people on LinkedIn. And finally, sometimes 5 or 6 years later, we'll end up going for a coffee. We've never met in person. We've probably had 1,000 conversations, but we end up going for a coffee. So again, LinkedIn is a great space to make or to find like-minded people and to ask questions, thoughtful questions, and gain a number of different responses. Add people to your network that way as well. And the other thing, which I know COVID put a damper on, but it's starting to emerge again, which is, HR conferences and seminars, right? Go to conferences and seminars. You can learn so much. Forget the online stuff now. I know the online stuff is really comfortable, but it's really hard when, in spaces like this where you can't see the other person, right? So it's important to be able to network with people face to face, make that live connection. And again, be curious, ask those intentional questions, and put yourself out there, right? The other thing I know that I did, which really fared well for me, is I actually became a guest speaker. Similar to what we're doing today, but this was with a couple of professors that I had worked with in the past who said, Romina, you've got like 30 years in the industry. Can you come and talk to our students? And I said, sure, no problem. And it was literally like a panel of people just asking and shooting questions. And, I don't have the answers to everything, but I can certainly tell you things based on my experiences and based on what I've learned as well. So go in and be a guest speaker so that you can gain that experience, or attend some of the workshops that maybe some of your colleges and universities are putting on for you as well. And it doesn't always have to be around HR. You can go to business seminars, marketing seminars, IT seminars, and network with people there, because remember, they're all working for companies too. So you never know who might hear something about something else, right? And a very, very quick story that I can tell you, one of my clients who was working in a job for 27 years was laid off. She was in a bank. She was a teller. She had no clue what she was going to do because she had no education or anything like that. But as I spoke to her, I said, you know what? You're really good at speaking. You're really good at enticing people and engaging people. Have you ever thought about being in sales? She said, oh my God, I don't want to start from the scratch, and I don't want to do this. And I've been a teller all my life. How am I going to get into sales? Well, sure enough. And I said the same thing to her. I said, put yourself out there. You never know. Tell people this is what you want to do. This is what you're thinking of. Sure enough, she said, I really need a makeover. And so she went to her hairdresser, got her haircut, and she told her hairdresser, and her hairdresser said, oh my God, I actually was just cutting the hair of a VP of sales. Why don't I put you in touch with him? And that is a true story. That is an absolute true story.
No,
Yes, absolute true story. And so I said to
I
her,
love
do you
that.
see what I mean when I say put yourself out there? You never know when timing is going to be right for you and the universe aligns. So you have to be open to possibilities, right?
Goosebumps.
And then, yeah, and then last thing was around alumni groups, right? Always remember that when there are alumni groups, attend those. Find out what your folks are doing, 5 years later, or when you met them in, 5 years ago. Where are they now? Build those connections, reignite some of those sparks, and really just make sure you connect. So I think I've given you a lot of ideas in terms of where to go about networking, and I'm sure there's a 1,000 more ways to go about doing it. But just remember, be resilient, be persistent, never give up, and just put yourself out there.
Romina, thank you so much. And I think, Saida, did you have a last word you wanted to say?
No, I think that was the
Okay.
perfect ending. Yeah.
Thank you,
Such a great
Romina.
job.
Thank you, Saida. Thank you, Ellie. I'm just gonna do a quick share of our upcoming events that you'll see on the screen. But I wanted to say a huge thank you to our panelists and also for answering questions in the Q&A. I know Niran and Harleen, your questions have been answered in the chat, in the Q&A, but also through these conversations. Wanted to give a huge thank you to all of you who've attended, and as Ellie said, invested in yourselves tonight by joining us today. And I invite you all to check out our sessions forthcoming, as you see on the screen, and to keep connecting and staying in touch with Devant and each other on LinkedIn and other places. So thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Really, really appreciate it. Have a
Take
great
care.
night. Take care,
Bye.
everyone.